Have you ever wondered why you keep attracting the same type of partner, despite promising yourself never again? Or why that voice in your head still tells you you're not good enough, no matter what you achieve? What if I told you there's a forgotten part of yourself, one that's been secretly controlling your life from the shadows? The truth is, most of us are living our adult lives through the lens of a wounded child. The single most powerful force shaping your relationships, career decisions, and self-worth isn't your conscious mind, it's your inner child. When Carl Jung, one of history's greatest psychologists, first uncovered this hidden dimension of our psyche, he realized something profound. The wounds we carry from childhood don't simply disappear with time. They become the invisible script running our adult lives. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how your inner child is influencing every aspect of your life, often without you even realizing it. But I need to warn you, what I'm about to share might feel uncomfortable at first. When we shine light on the parts of ourselves we've spent decades hiding, it can trigger resistance. That's your ego's defense system, trying to protect you from feeling vulnerable. Push through it, because on the other side of that discomfort lies the authentic, confident, and fulfilled version of yourself that's been waiting to emerge. Are you ready to meet and finally heal the child within? This inner child doesn't stay in the past. It manifests in every relationship you have today. Perhaps you've noticed that despite your attempts to change, you keep attracting partners who make you feel insecure, who don't value you, or who leave you with the feeling that you're never enough. Or perhaps in the workplace, you struggle to set boundaries, feel that you must give too much to receive recognition, or that any criticism hurts more than it should. All these reactions come from a deeper core, the wounds of your inner child. Jung discovered that the only way to free ourselves from these patterns is to face them head-on. Instead of ignoring that inner child or repressing her pain, we must give her space to speak, to express herself, to heal. When we do this, something incredible happens. We begin to see the world differently. Our relationships change, and life no longer feels like a constant struggle. Perhaps you wonder how to heal the inner child. The key lies in introspection and reconciliation with your own history. First, you need to recognize her presence. Every time you feel irrational fear, insecurity, or deep sadness, instead of ignoring it, ask yourself, what part of me feels this way? Where does this feeling come from? Sometimes the answer will lead you to childhood memories, to moments when you felt you weren't enough, or that you had to be different to be loved. Jung spoke of the power of symbols and the language of the unconscious. Many times our inner child manifests through dreams, sensations, or even repetitive patterns in our life. If you pay attention, you'll realize that there are situations that seem to repeat themselves over and over, as if life were trying to tell you something you haven't wanted to hear yet. Healing your inner child is not a one-day process. It's a daily commitment to yourself. It means allowing yourself to feel what you once had to repress. It means treating yourself with love and tenderness, speaking to yourself with the same sweetness with which you would speak to a little girl who is scared. It means giving yourself permission to play, to laugh without fear of judgment, to connect with the purest part of your being. When you initiate this process, something wonderful happens. Your feminine essence is liberated. Jung said that within every human being exists a masculine part and a feminine part. Feminine energy is not about gender, but a profound quality of the soul. It is the capacity to receive, to flow with life, to nurture and create from the heart. But when the inner child is wounded, this energy is blocked. We become rigid, distrustful, unable to truly open ourselves to life and love. The modern world has taught us that we must be strong, independent, self-sufficient, and although these qualities are valuable, when taken to the extreme, they disconnect us from our feminine essence. We learn to live in a constant state of alert, always protecting ourselves, without allowing ourselves to simply be. But Jung reminds us that true strength is not in closing ourselves off, but in allowing ourselves to feel, in opening ourselves to vulnerability with wisdom, and in recovering the connection with our intuition. The healing of the inner child is the key to this process. It is the bridge that leads us back to our authenticity, because when that child feels safe, when she knows she will not be rejected or abandoned, she dares to show herself without fear. And that is the feminine essence in its purest state, a magnetic, powerful, and creative energy that doesn't need to fight or prove anything because it simply is. Each step you take toward healing your inner child is a step toward a more authentic life. But this path requires courage because it involves facing those wounds you've tried to ignore. It involves stopping the search for validation outside and beginning to give yourself the love you've always needed. Jung taught us that the process of individuation, the path to fullness, does not consist of becoming something we are not, but in remembering who we have always been before the world told us what we should be. As you heal, you'll notice profound changes in your life. You'll begin to surround yourself with people who truly value you because you'll no longer accept less than you deserve. You'll stop needing external approval because you'll know you are enough just as you are. And most importantly, you'll regain the ability to enjoy life from a place of presence and fullness. This is not a quick or linear process. There will be days when you feel at peace, and others when it seems you've regressed. But every step counts. Every time you choose to treat yourself with love instead of self-criticism, every time you choose to listen to yourself instead of ignoring yourself, you are healing. And that healing not only transforms your life, but also impacts future generations. Because when a woman heals her inner child, she breaks patterns that have been transmitted for generations. She becomes a beacon of light for others, showing that it is possible to live from authenticity and self-love. The question is, are you ready to take that first step? Are you willing to look inward and embrace that child who has been waiting to be seen and loved? The answer is within you, and the time to start is now. The process of healing the inner child is not just about remembering the past, but about transforming the relationship you have with yourself in the present. Many people think that healing means reliving the wounds, but in reality, it's about giving them a new meaning. Jung taught us that the psyche has an incredible capacity for self-healing if we allow it to integrate what we have repressed. Over the years, we have learned to ignore our own voice. We grew up in a world that told us we had to be strong, that we couldn't show weakness, that we had to adjust to others' expectations to be loved or accepted. But every time we did this, every time we betrayed ourselves to fit in, our inner child felt abandoned. And that abandonment, though we don't see it consciously, continues to affect our decisions, our relationships, and our perception of the world. If you look carefully, you'll see that many of your reactions today are not those of the adult woman you are, but of that child who still seeks protection. Perhaps you felt anxious when someone moves away, as if deep down you feared being abandoned. Perhaps you avoid conflicts at all costs, because as a child, you learned that expressing your emotions could bring rejection. Or perhaps you become so self-sufficient that you find it difficult to ask for help, because at some point, you believed you couldn't count on anyone. Jung spoke of the importance of shadow integration, that part of us we prefer not to see. And in many women, the wounded inner child becomes a powerful shadow. It hides behind extreme independence, behind perfectionism, behind the fear of vulnerability. But no matter how much we try to repress it, it will always find a way to manifest. It can be through toxic relationships, patterns, or even physical illnesses, because body and mind are connected, and everything we don't heal emotionally manifests in some other form. Healing means giving voice to that child. It means allowing her to feel what at the time she could not express. Many times, the simple act of writing her a letter, speaking to her out loud, visualizing her, and telling her what she needed to hear can mark a before and after. It's a symbolic act. But Jung taught us that the unconscious works through symbols. And when we give closure to those moments from the past, we release the energy that has been trapped in them. By healing the inner child, we also transform our feminine energy, because the true essence of the feminine is not fragility but the capacity to receive, to connect with intuition, to create from the heart. When our inner child is wounded, this energy is blocked. We become rigid, distrustful, disconnected from our intuition. But when we heal her, when we learn to nurture ourselves instead of expecting someone else to do it, we recover that connection with our true essence. This doesn't mean we'll never feel fear or insecurity again. The healing process is continuous. It's a path of self-knowledge and transformation. But the difference is that instead of letting our wounds direct our lives, we learn to handle them with consciousness. Instead of reacting from pain, we act from wisdom. Instead of seeking validation outside, we give it to ourselves. This change not only impacts our relationship with ourselves, but with everything around us. When we heal our inner child, we change the way we relate to others. We stop accepting crumbs. We stop settling for relationships that drain us. We become more selective, not from fear, but from self-love. Because when we know what we're worth, when we've learned to give ourselves what we need, we stop desperately seeking someone else to do it for us. Jung said that the purpose of life is individuation. That is, becoming the person we truly are, without masks, without conditioning. But this process is only possible when we dare to look within, when we stop running from ourselves. And healing the inner child is one of the most important steps on this path. This process may awaken emotions you had buried for a long time. At first, you may feel resistance. A part of you may want to continue ignoring the past. But remember that every emotion that arises is an opportunity to heal. Instead of running from it, feel it, observe it, give it space, and little by little, you'll see how that inner child begins to trust you again. The outer world is a reflection of our inner world. If we want to transform our life, if we want to live with more love, with more peace, with more authenticity, we must first do that work inside. And the good news is that it's never too late to start. Your inner child is still there, waiting for you. And when you finally give her the love she has always needed, you'll realize that everything you've been looking for outside has always been within you. The moment you begin to heal your inner child, everything in your life begins to change. It's not an instant change, but it's a profound one. At first, you may feel resistance because the unconscious is not used to being heard. Jung spoke of how the psyche creates defense mechanisms to avoid pain, and one of the most common is distraction. Many times, when we are about to face our emotions, we find ways to evade them, immersing ourselves in work, conflictual relationships, constant entertainment. But the truth is, pain doesn't disappear by ignoring it. It stays in the body, in the mind, in the soul, waiting for us to acknowledge it. One of the most evident signs of a wounded inner child is the feeling of emptiness, that feeling that something is missing, that no matter what you do, there always seems to be a hole inside you. Many people try to fill this void with relationships, achievements, external validation. But Jung taught us that emptiness is not something that should be filled from the outside. It's a call from the unconscious, a sign that there are parts of you that have been forgotten and need to be reintegrated. When you begin to heal, you begin to notice how your emotions change. It's possible that at first you'll feel sadness, nostalgia, even anger. These emotions are not negative. They are the way the unconscious shows you what has been repressed. Instead of rejecting them, allow yourself to feel them. Write them down, meditate on them. Each time you do this, you're releasing energy trapped in the past. Another key aspect of this process is learning to differentiate the voice of your inner child from the voice of your ego. Jung spoke of the ego as the part of the psyche that tries to protect us, but often keeps us trapped in limiting patterns. The voice of the ego tends to be critical, perfectionist, fearful. It tells us we're not enough, that we can't trust others, that we must continue protecting ourselves. But the voice of the inner child is different. It's purer, more emotional, more sincere. It's the voice that tells you it wants love. It wants to be seen. It wants to be heard. As you heal, you begin to notice that your intuition becomes stronger. Jung spoke of the unconscious as an infinite source of wisdom, but to access it, we must first learn to listen to it. Many times, the answers we seek outside are already within us, but the noise of the outside world prevents us from hearing them. When you reconnect with your inner child, that voice becomes clearer. You begin to trust more in yourself, in your decisions, in your emotions. Relationships also change. One of the most impactful things about this process is realizing that many of the dynamics you've experienced in your relationships weren't really about other people, but about unresolved wounds within you. Perhaps you've noticed that you attract the same type of person over and over, or that certain situations repeat with different people. Jung taught us that this is no coincidence. It's the unconscious trying to show us something. When a wound hasn't been healed, we unconsciously seek to recreate the situation that originated it, hoping that this time we'll get a different result. That's why many people end up in relationships that reflect the same patterns as their childhood, not because they want to suffer, but because the unconscious seeks resolution. But resolution doesn't come from repeating the story with another person. It comes from becoming aware, from changing the narrative, from healing from within. When you begin to heal, you stop attracting relationships based on lack. You stop needing someone else to validate you because you learn to validate yourself. And when this happens, the people you surround yourself with also change. You begin to attract people who are in tune with your growth, who respect you, who value you for who you really are. But the most profound change occurs in your relationship with yourself. Jung said that true individuation, the process of becoming who we really are, can only occur when we integrate all parts of our psyche, including those we have rejected. And healing the inner child is a fundamental part of this process. As you progress on this path, you may realize that many of the beliefs you have about yourself aren't really yours. Perhaps you grew up with the idea that you weren't good enough, smart enough, valuable enough. But where do these ideas come from? Many times, they are beliefs we absorbed in childhood, based on the experiences we had and how we interpreted the world at that moment. But they aren't absolute truths. They are stories that can be rewritten. Healing means consciously choosing what story you want to tell about yourself. It means stopping repeating the script of the past and writing a new one based on self-love, acceptance, authenticity. And when you do this, everything in your life begins to align in a way you've never experienced before. This is a process of self-discovery, reconnection, and transformation. It's a journey that requires courage, but brings with it a freedom that few people get to experience. Because when you heal your inner child, when you give her the love she has always needed, you discover something incredible, that you were always enough, that you were always worthy of love, and that within you has always existed everything you need to live a full and authentic life. When you begin to experience this internal transformation, you notice that the way you relate to the world changes in subtle but powerful ways. What used to make you react with anger or pain no longer has the same effect on you, not because external situations have changed, but because your internal perception has evolved. Jung taught us that the outside world is only a reflection of our inner world. If before you felt that you always had to defend yourself, that no one understood you, or that you were invisible, it's likely this came from an unresolved wound in your inner child. But when you heal, when you recognize your value from within, you stop seeking validation outside yourself. This doesn't mean there won't be challenges. Healing is not a destination, but a constant journey. There will be days when you'll feel you've advanced a lot, and others when it will seem you're back to square one. But every step counts. Every time you choose to treat yourself with compassion instead of criticism, every time you choose to listen to yourself instead of ignoring yourself, you're building a healthier relationship with yourself. One of the most powerful aspects of this process is realizing that you no longer need others' recognition to feel complete. From a young age, many women have learned that their value depends on how others perceive them, if they're good enough, if they're liked, if they meet certain expectations. But all this is an illusion. True self-love doesn't come from being approved by the outside world, but from learning to validate yourself. And when you achieve this, something incredible happens. You become magnetic, not because you're seeking others' attention, but because the energy you emanate changes. Jung spoke of shadow integration as a key step for personal growth. The shadow is not something negative, but simply those parts of you that you haven't wanted to see. Perhaps in the past, you were taught to repress your voice, to minimize your feelings, to believe that expressing your needs was selfish. But integrating the shadow means recovering those lost parts. It means giving yourself permission to be who you really are, without fear of judgment. This process also impacts the way you establish boundaries. Many women with a wounded inner child feel they must please others to be loved. Perhaps you found yourself saying yes when you wanted to say no, yielding to what others want just to avoid conflicts. But when you begin to heal, you realize that setting boundaries is not an act of selfishness, but of self-love. Saying no when something doesn't resonate with you is a way to protect your energy, to honor yourself. And when you allow yourself to do this without guilt, you begin to attract people who truly respect your essence. Healing doesn't mean you'll never feel pain or fear again. It means that when those feelings arise, you'll know how to handle them without allowing them to control your life. It means that when you face a challenge, instead of reacting from the wound, you'll do so from consciousness. And that is true freedom. This transformation process affects not only your emotional world, but also the physical one. When your mind and soul are in harmony, your body responds positively. Many times, chronic illnesses, anxiety, or extreme stress are related to unresolved emotional wounds. Jung said that what we don't face at a conscious level manifests as destiny, and this applies both to our emotional life and our health. By releasing those wounds, by allowing yourself to let go of the weight you've carried for so long, you feel how your energy changes. Your body stops being in a constant state of alert. Your nervous system regulates. You sleep better. You feel lighter, more present, more connected to life. And this is one of the most beautiful rewards of this journey, discovering that the peace you were seeking was always within you. As you progress in this process, you begin to realize that what before seemed impossible now feels natural. Where before there was fear, now there is confidence. Where before there were doubts, now there is certainty. Not because life has become easier, but because you have changed the way you relate to it. When an inner child heals, an adult woman is reborn. And that rebirth is not just an internal change, but a complete transformation in the way you see yourself and the world. Now, instead of feeling you need to be rescued, you realize that you are the only one who can rescue yourself. Now, instead of seeking love outside yourself, you discover that the most important love is the one you give yourself. Now, instead of feeling you're not enough, you realize you always have been. And at this point, you understand that healing is not just a gift for you, but also for future generations. Every time you choose to break with past patterns, every time you choose to heal instead of repeat, you're creating a new path, not just for you, but for all the women who will come after you. The power of healing your inner child not only transforms your life, but impacts everyone around you. Because when a woman heals, her energy changes, her presence changes, her way of loving changes, and that transformation doesn't go unnoticed. It becomes an inspiration for others, a beacon of light that shows it's possible to live from authenticity, from fullness, from self-love. This journey is yours, and only you can decide when to take the first step. But when you do, I promise you'll never be the same again, because once you've healed, once you've seen your true value, there's no going back. Now is your moment. Now is your opportunity to recover everything that has always been yours. When you begin to live from this new consciousness, everything around you begins to reflect that change. Relationships that before seemed a challenge stop having the same impact on you. Patterns that before repeated themselves over and over begin to fade away because you no longer vibrate at the same frequency as the wounds of the past. Your energy changes, and with it, the way you experience life. Carl Jung said that when you reconcile with all parts of yourself, you become a complete being. And that is the greatest gift of this process, recovering your authenticity, your power, your ability to live from love instead of fear. The healing of your inner child is just the beginning of a much deeper path, one in which you stop being a prisoner of circumstances and begin to create your own reality. Think about what it would mean for you to let go, once and for all, of the insecurities, fears, and doubts you've carried for so long. Imagine waking up every day feeling full, at peace with yourself, with the certainty that you don't need to change anything about yourself to be loved, to be enough. That is true freedom, and it's in your hands to achieve it. This journey is not something you must travel alone. There are many people in the world who, like you, are in this process of transformation, and together we can make this message reach more people, helping more and more women awaken to their true power. If this message resonated with you, if something inside you felt these words were what you needed to hear, I invite you to share it. Perhaps there is someone in your life who needs to hear this today. Someone who is trapped in patterns they don't understand. Someone who hasn't yet discovered that the key to their freedom has always been within themselves. Leave me a comment telling me which part of this message impacted you the most. Have you felt the presence of your inner child in your life? What patterns have you noticed repeating in your relationships? Tell me about your experience, because each shared story helps more people identify and dare to begin their own healing process. Subscribe to the channel and activate notifications so you don't miss content like this. Every time you interact with this video, by commenting, sharing, or leaving your reaction, you're helping this information reach those who need it most. Together, we can create a community of conscious people who choose to heal, grow, and live from their authenticity. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for being part of this journey. Remember, within you already exists everything you need to heal, to transform, and to live from your true self. The change begins now. The change begins with you.